Our top story of the day, U.S. President Donald Trump stated that India is working on a trade deal along the same lines as the one he announced with Indonesia, which will provide the U.S. with greater access to the Indian market. Now, under the deal with Jakarta, there will be a 19% tariff on imports into the U.S., but none on exports from the U.S. to Indonesia. This is what he told reporters in Washington on Tuesday. Negotiators from India and the U.S. are working to reach a deal before the August 1st deadline that Trump has set for making deals or face arbitrary tariffs.
So we made a deal with Indonesia. I spoke to their really great president, very popular, very strong, smart. And we made the deal. We have full access to Indonesia, everything. As you know, Indonesia is very strong on copper, but we have full access to everything. We will pay no tariffs. So they are giving us access into Indonesia, which we never had. That's probably the biggest part of the deal. India basically is working along that same line. We're going to have access into India. And you have to understand, we had no access into any of these countries. Our people couldn't go in. And now we're getting access because of what we're doing with the tariffs. So they're paying 19% and we are not paying anything.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte warned on Wednesday that countries such as Brazil, China, and India could be hit very hard by secondary sanctions if they continue to do business with Russia. Rutte made the comment while meeting with senators in the U.S. Congress the day after President Donald Trump announced new weapons for Ukraine and threatened biting, and I quote, biting secondary tariffs off 100% on the buyers of Russian exports unless there is a peace deal in 50 days. Russia and
slam secondary sanctions on countries like India, China and Brazil. So my encouragement to these three countries particularly is, if you live now in Beijing or in Delhi, or you are the president of Brazil, you might want to take a look into this, because this might hit you very hard. So please make the phone call to Vladimir Putin and tell him that he has to get serious about peace talks, because otherwise this will slam back on Brazil, on India and on China in a massive way.
Russia and Ukraine continued to trade strikes as Russia struck Ukrainian military facilities, while Kyiv downed 178 Russian drones. Russia's defense ministry said that its forces struck Ukrainian positions across Sumy, Kharkiv, and Donetsk regions over the past 24 hours, destroying several electronic warfare stations, radar installations, as well as ammunition depots. On the same day, Ukraine armed forces claimed in a battle report that their forces had struck 11 Russian troops and equipment concentrations over the past day. Ukraine's Air Force reported shooting down 178 of the 267 Russian-launched drones since Monday. Now, Ukraine's parliament on Tuesday voted to extend martial law and mobilization until November 5th and temporarily suspend the country's participation in the Ottawa Convention, an international treaty that prohibits the use of anti-personnel landmines. U.S. President Donald Trump has revealed that it was First Lady Melania Trump who influenced his opinions about Russian President Vladimir Putin. During a White House meeting, Trump informed that it was his wife who provided a harshly critical response to his previous perceptions of the Kremlin leader and his war in Ukraine, triggering the shift in Washington's position and ramping up pressure on Moscow.
From once vocal admirers to now warring leaders, the Trump-Putin bonhomie has taken a turn for the worse. As the Russia-Ukraine war grinds on with no end in sight, beyond the politics, it seems one person quietly pulled the string that changed Trump's stance on the Russian president, triggering Washington's U-turn, none other than First Lady Melania Trump. The US president revealed that it was the First Lady who called out Putin's false promises after numerous phone calls with Trump on ending the war in Ukraine, influencing the US president's perception.
My conversations with him are always very pleasant. They say, isn't that a very lovely conversation? And then the missiles go off that night. I go home, I tell the First Lady, I spoke to Vladimir today. We had a wonderful conversation. She said, oh, really? Another city was just hit.
Slovenian-born Melania Trump grew up in the former Yugoslavia and has always been a vocal supporter of Ukraine. While Trump has been skeptical of the Ukrainian leader, as seen evidently in the fiery Trump-Zelensky clash at the Oval Office earlier this year. While Trump has often accused Zelensky of starting the war, Melania has pushed for greater aid for Ukraine in the early days of the war. Melania met the Russian president on numerous occasions during Trump's first term, yet has been skeptical of the leader, even reminding US President Trump of the rising human toll in prolonged Ukraine war. Hailing Melania as Washington's secret weapon against Russia, Kyiv is celebrating the First Lady, with meme galore dubbing her agent Melania Trumpenko, hinting that she is secretly working for Ukraine within the White House. Memes aside, it seems the quiet yet ever well-presented First Lady is now wading into foreign policy with the year of the most powerful man on the international stage, Donald Trump. Will it be the First Lady, not the US President, who will finally end the Russia-Ukraine war? Disha Bakchi for NDTV.
Court documents have revealed that the UK set up a secret scheme to relocate thousands of Afghans to the UK after a soldier accidentally disclosed the personal details of more than 33,000 people, putting them at risk of reprisals from the Taliban. A May 2024 judgment made public for the first time on Tuesday revealed that about 20,000 people may have to be offered relocation to Britain, a move that would likely cost several billion pounds. The government is also facing lawsuits from those affected by the breach, further adding to the ultimate cost of the incident. Listen in to what the UK Defence Secretary has to say.
Mr. Speaker, this serious data incident should never have happened. It may have occurred 3 years ago under the previous government, but to all those whose information was compromised, I offer a sincere apology today on behalf of the British government. And the full number of Afghan arrivals under all schemes have been reported in the regular Home Office statistics, meaning that they are already counted in the existing migration figures.
The man who allegedly rammed his car into 114-year-old marathon runner Fauja Singh on the Jalandhar-Pathankot highway has been arrested. Amritpal Singh Dhillon, a 30-year-old non-resident Indian or NRI, was arrested 2 days after Singh, popularly known as Turbaned Tornado, suffered head injuries in a hit-and-run accident while he was crossing the road at his native village near Jalandhar in Punjab. Singh was taken to the hospital where he later died. A Punjab-registered Toyota Fortuner, which was allegedly involved in the hit-and-run on Monday, has also been seized.
हमको कोई नहीं पता है इसके बारे है ना अभी कोई हमको इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं दी किसी ने नहीं पुलिस जब जे किसी ने फड़ना होवे तो एकदम फड़ सकती जे तो पीछे पै जावे सब कुछ है उन्हें क्लू होंदे आ पर चलो बहुत बढ़िया पुलिस का काम मैंने पता सीगा जदा भी शोर आ असी तो क्या सीगा चलो बापू बच जाते बापू होना दा कोई जी असी तो कार्रवाई नहीं कराउणी सी चलो कोई गल नहीं ਤੇ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਸੀ ਵੀ ਚਲੋ ਲੱਗੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਖੜਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਉਹਦਾ ਵੀ ਕਸੂਰ ਚਲੋ ਜੋ ਕੁਛ ਕੋਈ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗੀ ਪਰ ਗਲਤੀ ਕਰ ਬੈਠਾ ਵੀ ਤੂੰ ਚੱਲ ਦੌੜ ਕਾ ਤੋਂ ਗਿਆ ਹਨਾ
The premier of the Canadian province of Alberta has urged the federal government to designate the notorious Lawrence Bishnoi gang a terrorist organization, joining a string of leaders to make such a request. In a post on X on Monday, Daniel Smith pointed out that the gang's outreach, its global and its intent is criminal and violent, and its activities, and I quote, knows no boundaries and respects no borders. Satyajit Ray's ancestral home in Bangladesh, formerly used as the Maiman Singh Shishu Academy, is being demolished by the Bangladesh government to build a new semi-concrete structure. After the news came to light, the government of India extended its cooperation to the Bangladesh government to repair and restore the ancestral property. The execution of Nimisha Priya has been postponed, with hectic parleys underway in Yemen in a last-ditch effort to save the nurse from Kerala who was sentenced to death by local authorities for killing a man who was harassing her. Priya's execution was scheduled for today, but it has now emerged that the murdered man's family has been convinced to postpone it until further notice. However, this does not mean she would be released or sent back to India. She's currently in Sana'a, the Houthi-held capital of Yemen. India does not have any diplomatic relations with the Houthi rebels.
यमन में एक कत्ल हुआ, वो कत्ल के बाद कोर्ट में जाके केस हुआ। वो केस में एक औरत का नाम है निमिषा प्रिया, वो नॉन मुस्लिम है। वो ये औरत को कत्ल करने का हुक्म हुआ है। वहाँ का वलमा से बोल दिया इस्लाम में कत्ल के बजाय दियत देना, कवद देना, ये भी है।
At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's foreign ministers meeting in China, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar made it clear that the fight against terrorism must be non-negotiable. Citing the April 22nd Pahalgam attack, where 26 civilians were targeted and killed, Jaishankar said the assault was aimed at derailing Kashmir's fragile tourism economy and sowing religious discord. With foreign ministers from across the region present, including Pakistan, Jaishankar did not hold back. He urged SCO countries to act together and bring those responsible to justice. His message could not be clearer. The SCO was built to fight terrorism, separatism, and extremism. It must now live up to that purpose. This all comes before world leaders, including Prime Minister Modi, gather in Tianjin for the SCO summit. In a fresh twist in Pakistani politics, Reham Khan, journalist and ex-wife of former PM Imran Khan, has announced the launch of her own political party called Pakistan Republic Party, marking her formal entry into politics. Reham said the party would act as the people's voice and would hold the ruling elite accountable. She also added that her new party is a response to the growing dissatisfaction with the current political environment in Pakistan. The Pentagon is ending the deployment of 2,000 National Guard troops in Los Angeles, accounting for nearly half of the soldiers sent to the city to deal with protests over the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Roughly 4,000 National Guard soldiers and 700 Marines have been in the city since early June. It wasn't immediately clear what prompted the 60-day deployment to end suddenly, nor was it immediately clear how long the rest of the troops would stay in the region. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass claimed the removal of troops as a victory for the state. Listen in.
I am here to say that we've had an important victory. I think because Los Angeles stood strong, because we understood what it meant that the federal government came in and seized power away from our governor regarding the deployment of the National Guard, and inappropriately sent the National Guard here when they were not needed. The administration has finally understood that they need to withdraw the troops. Let me say that this is what happens when the city stands strong, because we have been united. When people peacefully protest, when people raise the concerns about having National Guard, in a situation where they were, as far as I'm concerned, used as props.
Donald Trump is calling on the Justice Department to release all credible files related to Jeffrey Epstein, but says the final call rests with the Attorney General Pam Bondi. Speaking at the White House Tuesday, Trump said Bondi has handled it very well, but repeated his claim that many of the Epstein files were made up by Democrats. That's a shift from his campaign trail promises to probably release everything. Trump is now facing rare backlash from his own base. Some MAGA supporters accuse the administration of covering up key details to protect powerful elites. Even top Republicans like House Speaker Mike Johnson and Trump's daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, are demanding more transparency.
The Attorney General's handled that very well. She's really done a very good job. No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen. And I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden.
A federal grand jury indicted a man on charges that he fatally shot a prominent Minnesota state representative and her husband, and seriously wounded a state senator and his wife while he was allegedly disguised as a police officer. Vance Bolter, who is accused of shooting dead Democrat Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark, while disguised as a police officer, was indicted by a federal grand jury. He could face the death penalty if convicted. Now, Minnesota abolished its state death penalty in 1911, but President Donald Trump's administration says it intends to be aggressive in seeking capital punishment for eligible federal crimes. Listen in.
We are here today to announce that a federal grand jury has returned a 6-count indictment against Vance Belter. Now, this indictment includes a notice of special findings. These special findings are the first step towards seeking the death penalty against defendant Vance Belter. The ultimate decision as to whether to seek the death penalty will not come for several months and will ultimately be decided by Attorney General Bondi with input from the Capital Case Unit in the Department of Justice, along with this office and the victims.
The United Nations Special Rapporteur for Gaza and the West Bank has demanded nations around the world to take concrete actions to stop what she called the genocide in Gaza. Speaking at a 2-day conference organized by the governments of Colombia and South Africa, Francesca Albanese spoke to delegates from 30 countries in Colombia's capital to discuss the Israel-Hamas war. However, it remains to be whether the conference's participating countries have enough leverage over Israel to force it to change its policies in Gaza, where more than 58,000 people have been killed in Israeli military operations following a deadly Hamas attack on Israel back in 2023. Listen in.
Each state must immediately review and suspend all ties with the State of Israel. Military, strategic, political, diplomatic, economic relations, both imports and exports, and to make sure that their private sectors, insurers, banks, pension funds, universities, and other goods and service providers in the supply chain do the same.
I do believe that the US is totally complicit with whatever Israel is doing, but to the point that with the new administration, even the forced displacement of the Palestinians, which has occurred for decades under the watch of everyone.
Flash floods have hit major cities across northeastern United States, causing travel chaos and road closures. In New Jersey, 2 were killed after their vehicle was swept up in floodwaters during a storm. Viral videos posted online showed water flooding down into one Manhattan subway station, submerging the platform while passengers inside a train watched on. City officials said their vulnerable sewer system worked as well as it could, but it simply was not built to handle that much rain.